Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another stream on the ESP32 product creation journey. My name is Kevin, and on today's stream, I want to talk about a couple things. I want to address a question that I got in the Discord, as well as sort of what's coming next for streams and things like that that you can expect to be seeing. So, the first thing that I want to address, we'll just hop right into it, is somebody reached out and asked what the plan was to profit off of making these devices. And so again, if you're new, let's grab our device that we've created. It is a hockey puck holder. You can see there it, let me turn it this way. It's having a hard time auto-focusing. Anyway, to display your team puck or assigned puck or whatever it may be, like, like that. And it shows stats about your favorite hockey team. In the future, we'll enable that to do players as well. Lots of ideas on how to expand that. But so anyway, that's the product. And somebody asked, how are we making money off of it? And that's a great question, and it is the question when you're trying to start a business, especially that involves selling Internet of Things hardware. And something that I've talked about, many ages ago on, I'm sure, some of my YouTube videos, is how I think my sense is that Kickstarter's gotten a little better at it, but how much of a running joke it was for so many years. And I think still somewhat to this day, of how these hardware projects come out on Kickstarter and just they're not even close to reality on what it will cost to manufacture a device, is like in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of the logistics of delivering that to people. And that's why historically you've seen a ton of failures on things like Kickstarter with hardware, because with software, the cost of entry is very low. If you have a computer and free open source tools, you can start writing code. If you have, well, in many cases, you don't even have to pay to host it because there's free tiers on things like AWS, and I think Azure has free tiers as well. But even then, you could get a droplet on DigitalOcean for like $5 a month. Like the cost is very, very low. And if you can write software that solves a problem for people and does cool things, you can charge money for that far outweighs or exceeds what you're paying to host it. Hardware is a bit different. It's more like a hard goods business where, if you sold bikes, you have to buy the bikes for a certain amount and then sell them and make a profit off of them. The difference being with Internet of Things devices is once you sell that bike, for instance, we'll stick with bikes, whatever profit was, you bought the bike for $1,000. Oh, let's make it simple. You buy it for $500 and then you turn around and you sell it to a customer for $1,000. You made $500 profit. And then you just work your way backward from there of, if you have a storefront, what's the rent on that a month? What's the electric bill and the internet bill? And how many bikes do you have to sell to cover your, expenses, whatever it is, 50 bikes a month to cover the cost of operating your business. And then any bikes you sell after that are, profit per se, after you've paid off everything. And there's not a long-term contract there. And I say, I'm gonna do contract like this. Whereas the person might bring the bike back to you for maintenance or things like that, but if they do, they're going to pay you for that. Like the expectation is, oh, hey, I need you to fix a rim or the seat or the brakes. What's the cost of that? And they'll come back. So any future interaction you have with that customer and that bike that's not a defect, that's just maintenance or things like that, you'll earn more revenue for. With Internet of Things, it gets really interesting. For example, this was my original product. It's a hockey puck, a real hockey puck that is bored out and has the same display in it that shows the same stats. We didn't sell too many of these, a few dozen, because the cost of making them was crazy high, especially because I was insisting on using a real rubber, vulcanized rubber hockey puck. But that goes out the door. I make a profit. But then I've got to keep this thing running perpetually, right? So stats have to be updated after every game for as long as they own the device. And that is not free. ish. We'll come back to that. But anyway, there's an ongoing support cost there that doesn't exist when you're just exchanging hard goods as a business. And so the business model for Internet of Things devices is a tricky one. And different companies have approached this in different ways with varying degrees of success. The thing that I hate, and I am just going to try so hard never to fall into, is I hate the monthly subscription model. And the reason for this is companies think, well, I've got to keep this thing updating every month, so you should pay for that every month. The problem is, and I think that a lot of Internet of Things device makers fall into, is they think that their device is the greatest thing in the world, and why wouldn't somebody want to pay money every month for this service? And the reality is people have a limited tolerance for monthly bills for everything. Like my smart trash can, I got to pay a monthly bill for. My smart security system, I got to pay a monthly bill for. My smart car, I got to pay a monthly bill for, which is starting to happen, by the way. Like features in cars are going to be charged on a monthly basis, or they'll disable them remotely. It's getting crazy. And so I think people are really tiring. And by the way, Internet of Things hasn't gotten like super mass adoption. There are a lot of people out there that still don't really know about smart products. It's getting more market capture, but when you start hitting people with all these monthly bills, like people just, they have a low tolerance for that. I'm one of them. Like I don't want to have a Hue Light, monthly bill, and a smart outlet monthly bill, and a smart security camera monthly bill, and a smart this monthly. It's like, it's just too much. And for those that are technical enough, we don't need your cloud hosting service. And so anyway, back to, well, it's a value. Why wouldn't you pay for it? Because first of all, people have a finite amount of money, and it's not worth that much to me, right? Like, and I'm very, like, seeing the stats is super cool. It goes up and it really enhances your display. Like you can kind of see it. Yep, this shelf right here. I got all my Capital stuff. It really enhances the display. It's a cool thing to show to people. But I'm not paying $5 a month for this. And I made the thing, and I'm not paying $5 a month for this. I'm not paying $2 a month for this. I mean, you could say like, oh, we'll charge people like $10 a year. I still feel like that is pushing it. Like, I think people will be like, it's cool. It's not that cool. And I'll get to this a little later. I've had other companies reach out and have shared similar thoughts of like, yeah, the monthly subscription is the kiss of death for a product. And that's because, again, I think a lot of founders and creators think, oh, my product's so cool, people will pay a monthly fee for it. It's like, yeah, they might for a little bit, but then they're not gonna. So anyway, I beat that horse dead. So I don't want to do that. And at all costs, I want to try to avoid it. I'm not going to say never, because, I mean, who knows what the landscape will change to in the future of where that might make sense. But right now, I don't feel like it makes sense, and I don't like the idea. And so whatever profit I make off of this, when it goes out the door, has to sustain the business. And so that's a hard problem to solve. And a lot of hardware companies, I feel like, don't solve that problem, or don't think enough about that problem up front, or they way underestimate what they could get for it, or they try the subscription model, which ultimately ends up failing, or they try to charge way too much, which limits the amount that they sell. And so it's a hard problem to crack. How we are approaching it is a couple of ways. First, limiting expenses is super key. So I think I spoke in a previous stream about how like I would love, because I recently went through training and got my first real like in-depth dive on Kubernetes, and really cool, awesome stuff. It's expensive. Hosting Kubernetes through, DigitalOcean was the cheapest, but even then you're talking $40 a month, which, you think about startups that have VC funding, that's nothing. But again, every little bit counts, right? So AWS is like $70 a month, Azure similar, $70 a month, just for a very simple Kubernetes cluster that would run my very simple services. Well, that now I got to cover, let's call it $70 a month worth of overhead. And that stuff just builds and builds and builds. And so limiting that cost through tech decisions, I think, is really key. So that's one of the things that we're doing. We are making, sorry, I was about to hold the puck up again. Puck holder. We are making money on the sale of each of these, and that's really tricky right now, especially with the global shortage of components and the cost of things going up, and inflation, at least here in the United States, is like going crazy. It's like at 7% or something. And so finding the price point is something that we're still working out. We do want to make a profit on each device, and that profit needs to be pretty significant. Again, for the reasons I stated earlier, ongoing cost, lifetime cost of maintenance, as well as, ultimately to pay a salary to me, to my partner, to anybody else that we need to hire. So there's got to be, some profit in there. And so I don't actually have the full numbers yet. And that might be like, Kevin, what are you talking about? Shouldn't you know this by now? Thorax, hey, what's up? Thanks for joining. And the answer is, yeah, I do. Like, I know all of the money I spent on all of the raw materials, like the enclosures and the displays and the batteries and the adhesive and all of that stuff. I have all of that. The mold for the enclosure was crazy expensive, but the quantity is low enough right now. So we did a batch of 500, and the cost of doing a batch of 500 is very different than the cost of doing a batch of even 1,000 or 10,000. The cost changes a bunch. And so I do know what all of the raw materials cost for this batch of 500, but I'm not using it as a measuring stick of how to properly price the product to make the profit that we want, if that makes sense. That was a lot of words I just said. Ultimately, I think it's a good rule of thumb, if you're not sure, to go with 100% markup with an Internet of Things device. And that, I feel like, is still be careful there. But in some, you can't, and so you have to navigate that. Right now, we're selling these for $69.95, so $70. And I feel like for the run of 500, again, the mold cost was in there, so I can't really give you a good, like, what the raw cost per unit was, because the mold becomes less expensive per unit the more units. We could make 100,000 puck holders with the one mold that we had made for the enclosure. And so setting that cost aside, we're around 100% markup at that point. And so roughly, we'll call it. And again, it's to pay for all the things. And so the question, again, going back to the first point of controlling costs. I don't want to, I spent a bunch of time last week doing a full chart of my entire tech stack ecosystem. And you know what? I'm going to show it. I was going to say I'm not going to show it. I'm going to show it. It's just a diagram. Let's switch views here. Oh, Thorax, great. I'm going to come back to your question there. Thorax in the Discord has a great question. Okay, here it is. If you want to tell me it sucks or copy it or whatever, like, this is the entire, like I have up here, stat feeder ecosystem. And there's two things going on here. On this side, I have my old pucks, which, again, I sold these. Some of them are coming up on 3 years old. They're still getting stats after every hockey game. And those customers are paying nothing for that. Which I've had people say, no, you need to charge people for that. Again, it sounds good in theory. As soon as I would reach out to these people and say, hey, that puck I sold you, it's going to stop updating unless you pay me $10 a year. I don't know, but I think the usage of those would drop to near zero, which I don't want. It's a cool product that they bought with the expectation that it would continue to work, and I'm committed to making it continue to work. And I'll talk about the cost of that here in just a second. So this is it. This side here, this left side, is the what goes into keeping the pucks running. And on the right side here is more of what goes into the puck holders. And I would have loved for them to converge, but at this point, I'm not going to do that. And it's purely a cost return on investment discussion, which is I would love for, you can see like this right here, this block is the puck, and it gets its information from the puck backend service that I have here. I would love for it to be able to get its information from this service over here, which is where the puck holders get their information from. But the risk in doing that and moving that and repointing it and making sure these devices can handle that is non-zero. And again, I have a very limited number of these out there that people are still using. And this is costing me, it's through Heroku, it's $7 a month. So I'm essentially paying $7 a month to not have to take the risk of making that more complicated or dangerous and breaking it. It's like my insurance. I just keep paying that $7 a month. Everybody's puck will keep working. Done. And so I had plans to, like I said, have them share the same back end, but I'm not worried about that right now, based on, again, usage and things like that. But let's talk about the back end for the puck holders. I've told you before, I'm using Render at this point, render.com. And that is also, I believe, $7 a month for the stat backend for puck holders. That's basically the extent, because all this other like Amazon infrastructure that you're seeing up here, I have startup founder credits, which you shouldn't rely on, which are great to have. But also I'm within the free tier at this point. And I have done the math. I don't have all those calculations for you, but coming out of that free tier wouldn't be crushing. Which is one of the reasons, if you remember, I switched off of the particle ecosystem, because once you break that 100 device ceiling and they start charging, particle, same thing. Well, we got to charge you every month for this valuable service. It's like, it's not worth that much to me. I can't even maintain a product at the cost that you want me to pay for every single device that I maintain for my customers, unless I'm turning around and charging them, which I don't want to do. And so the cost of this infrastructure stuff in like an Amazon or an Azure or DigitalOcean is really, really low if you're smart about tech decisions, which I'm trying to be. And even though in small doses you're in the free tier, you need to be thinking about, well, what happens when I've sold 100,000 of these? Because you're taking it to the moon. Like, don't think you're not. You are. You got to get there. When you have 100,000 devices out there, now what does your monthly cost look like? And again, if it's a lot of money, if it's thousands of dollars, the number of devices you have to sell just to cover your operating costs goes way up. And so I am feeling pretty good based on looking at the math and current pricing models with all these cloud services that even at large scale, hundreds of thousands of devices, I would need to sell relatively few number of devices every month to cover the operating costs. Now, again, just at my stage, if I were to do Kubernetes instead, now I've got, instead of $7 or $14 a month with the two services, I've got $70 a month. That's a huge difference. Like 14 to 70, like that's a big difference. And I haven't gotten anywhere near scale. Like this would still be considered hobby level with the devices that we're selling, which by the way, we are. Like going into the holiday season, like I'm packing up puck holders every single day, and it's going pretty well. Like sales are going up. So anyway, that is how I'm thinking about profit. I'm trying to make a profit on every device that we sell. The other thing that we are looking at are other revenue models that take a little bit more creativity. So yes, there's the direct to consumer model where I'm selling things directly to end users and making a profit off of those. But there's also opportunities to get into, especially with some of these sports things. Just as an example, season ticket holders for all sports, not just hockey. We're starting with hockey. We intend to expand this out to other sports. I'm going to switch views here because we're going to talk about something else here in a minute. Season ticket holders, they create packages for them, like gift bags to kind of schmooze the season ticket holders. But there's some opportunities there to have partnerships with teams and leagues and things like that, where you'd have a little higher margin on per device sales. So some things like that, partnerships that way. We also are reaching out, what you need when you buy a puck holder. Most likely you have a puck, but maybe you don't and you want a puck. It would be nice if we offered that on the website as well. So we're looking at some partnerships to also have more products that complement our products. So in this case, like if we could also be a reseller of National Hockey League pucks, we can make a little bit of profit on those as well. And again, that's back more to the bike analogy where it's just we pay $1 for them and we sell them for $5, whatever it is. They're pretty high margin items. Like you'd be surprised if you're not familiar with sports, how much just screen printing this logo, which is trademarked and all that other stuff, like increases the value of a chunk of black rubber. I mean, it's insane. And so there's some ideas there. We are also considering and looking at the possibility of partnering with teams for communication. Maybe giving fans of a particular team, if there's a huge deal or discount on like certain holiday packages for tickets or things like that, being able to communicate that through the device to a very targeted audience. And I know you're hearing it like ad machine, yes and no. Like, I'm not trying to be Google here, but some very targeted, helpful things that people would be interested in. One that I think of for my team, the Capitals, is if the Capitals score 5 or more goals, I think it is 5 or more goals in a game, you get 50% off at Papa John's the next day. That's for doing nothing. Like the team scored 5 goals, you get a discount at a pizza place. Like that's a cool thing to know about. And it's something that we could put on the screen. It's a QR code that's like, you scan it and it says, hey, you get 50% off at Papa John's today, just FYI. It's not trying to sell anything. It's adding value, but the ability to do that, you know, for like a Papa John's to get more people in store could be valuable as a partnership, like whatever that is, to say, hey, we would love to help get more people in there on this deal. We can put that on our devices. It's a very hyper-focused group of consumers. And so those are ideas for revenue. However, ultimately, I want to be able to sustain the business off the profit of the sale of the devices themselves. Because again, I think a lot of hardware companies get into this weird scenario where it's like, well, we made them for 20, let's sell them for 20 just to get mass adoption, and then we'll figure out how to monetize it later. And I think that's where you get into this weird spot where people end up shutting down services where they're like, oh, hey, customers, you thought you had a cool device, but not anymore unless you pay. And like that maybe works. Like maybe half the people leave, but the half that stay and pay is totally worth it. I hate that. And that's not the plan I want to go into this. I think that's poor planning. And I just hate the idea. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to try it a different way. So anyway, I think we covered that enough. It was 23 minutes about the profit or business model of selling puck holders. Now, Thorax, great question. I hope you're still here. He was saying that he was looking at the deploy the fleet service. So this is the other side of the revenue, which maybe let's switch back. So I've got deploy the fleet over here as well. And it is a service that, let's get a window up over here. Deploy the fleet.io that I've talked about in the past, that I created for over-the-air firmware updates for our devices. So this is one of the reasons I left Particle, which is the only thing I was using in the Particle cloud. They have all sorts of fancy bells and whistles. The only thing I cared about was, can I push a firmware update to my devices when I need to? And the answer with Particle is yes, and they've got a lot of tooling around that, which is really cool and neat, and you can create groups, and you can create development devices, and do upgrade paths, and all this cool fancy stuff, which is interesting, and they put a lot of work and stuff into. But they also have gotten $80 million in VC funding, and so somebody's got to make their money back in spades on that, and so they need to charge people for in my case, it was going to be when I got a quote, and it could have changed since then, but at the time when I was asking to make the decision, should I stay or should I go, it was $1 per device per month after 100 devices. So if I sell 1,000 devices, I have to pay $900 a month to keep those devices in a state where I can send firmware updates to them. That's completely, again, untenable unless I'm charging my customers money, which, again, I can't in this case. Like, the market's not there yet. People want to buy it, have it work, and be done with it. And so I created Deploy the Fleet, which is my own version of this to manage OTA updates, but also similar people. And I've found people have been reaching out. I've had several companies reach out saying, hey, I found your service. I guess it's getting more organic reach. I haven't done any marketing on this, and would like to use it for my project, and just had questions about it and things like that. Now, this is another form of revenue that I'm rolling up under the same business. And this is much more of a, obviously, software play. Like, I'm putting a lot of work and effort into designing this to make it simple and easy for people to use, myself being the first and primary customer. But at that point, it's a software play. The margins are very, very high. Whatever it costs to host this for whatever scale will be offset by people paying for the service. And so Thorax had a great question, which he said he was looking at maybe using Deploy the Fleet, but I don't think I could support the overhead of a subscription with the volume I would be selling. Thorax, since you're a follower of the channel, I'm going to give you the inside that I haven't shared with the companies that are unless you are one of them. Maybe you're one of the people that reached out to me. But if you see, so like I put this website together, Deploy the Fleet, you can manage your firmware, insights into your fleet, and all this stuff. I have lots of plans for this, just not time to get to it. Right now, it serves the purpose for my puck holders, but I've got a lot planned for it. And, this get started and stuff to help you get it up and going. But then if you come to the pricing, I've got the standard pricing thing. I've got Maker Free, perfect for simple one-off projects that you need to deploy. And then I have like single product up to 10 firmwares, up to 5 devices, unlimited OTA updates. The Maker Pro, $5 a month, up to 50 devices and different numbers of firmwares and stuff. And then there's like the startup level, $100 a month, unlimited everything. Completely made up. I just made this up. Like I mean, not entirely. Like, I did put some thought into how to differentiate the different categories, but as far as like $5 a month, $100 a month, like, I have no idea how much I would need to charge for this service to make it worth my while to maintain it for actual people using it. I put this out more as a just test the waters, see if anybody reached out and said, hey, I'm interested in it, because if you actually create an account and launch the app and go in, there are no limits. You could add 5,000 firmwares and have 3,000 devices. Like, I don't even have any of the backend in place to limit that at this point, nor do I have a way to capture people's payment information and charge them a recurring fee. So, that's my confession, Thorax. Like, so when you say you can afford it, like, send me an email, kevin@sidwar.com. I'll put it in the chat. And let's talk. Like, if you've tried it out and you find it interesting and useful, and will meet your needs, like, let's talk about it. Like, don't not use it because you think you can't afford it, because we could probably figure something out. So, and that one of the companies reached out and was like, I'm a little concerned about the pricing model. And I was like, well, let's talk. We can figure that out. Because again, I don't know what does it mean to have 10,000 devices on a platform like this? And it depends on how often they're updating. Ultimately, where I would love to take this service is a usage model, like in Amazon. Like, there's no sense in, because I'm a big believer in supporting those products that are just like mine, that don't want to charge a monthly subscription for an IoT device, but want to build and provide an IoT device to customers. Like, I really want to, that market speaks to me. And so I want to help those people, because that's me as well. if you have 10,000 devices, but they only get a firmware update once a year, why pay a monthly fee? And you can make the argument, oh, the storage of that firmware, correct, but all of that could be usage based. I mean, if you know anything about the pricing model of these cloud services, let's say I was storing 100 firmwares for you and you updated each device quarterly, 4 times a year. The cost of that is really low, and then I would need to figure out, like, on top of that, like, what's my value add to businesses of being able to have this service for you that falls within that range of you're not charging your customers, but you have to pay me something for, the facilities that I'm providing. Yeah, cool, sweet. Oh yeah, so you did go over the limits. Yeah, see, yeah, you're welcome. Have at it. Yeah, just reach out to me when you get to a point, if you really want to look into using it, as you get along with your product. Reach out, and if it's something, we could probably work something out. Like I said, right now there's about, I think, 30 or so user accounts of people using this for different projects. I am the sole commercial customer for this, which I think is a great thing, because I had somebody reach out and say, hey, I'm worried about, because if you come into my, like, getting started here, if you come to, like, the ESP32 IDF, you'll see a big fat, like, coming soon. This is just time. I haven't, like, I'm using it in an ESP32, but it has a little bit, as you browse the site, it has a little bit of a, is this really being maintained, or is it going anywhere? And the answer is no. Like, I need this service up and running because my product runs on it, which I think is healthy, because it's not something that I can just decide, you know what, I don't really want to waste any more time on this part of the business, so I'm just going to get rid of it. I can't. Like, my own product relies on it. And it is another source of, like I said, future revenue that I have high hopes for. Like, I think this is a service that a lot of people need, and could benefit from because of its simplicity. And again, the cost I'll work out, so that everybody wins. So yeah, anyway, that's that was a little long. It was like 32 minutes. But that's sort of the overall business model. And again, it's ongoing and being, we're figuring it out as we go, but not going in with just let's just sell everything at, like, a dead simple, like, if I could sell these things for $20, I think they would sell like bananas. Like, it's a no-brainer at that point. It's like a really cool, you can't buy, like, a not smart puck holder for $20 in some cases. Like, so why not buy one that has a display? Sure. And I could lose money on it, and then it's like, I'll just figure out how to make money off all these people later. I think that sucks. And I could, again, play that game where it's like, I could go to VCs and show, like, look at these things are selling like crazy. Just imagine what we could do and this and that. And people would throw millions of dollars at me. And then it's like, all right, well, now I got to really figure out how to make money off of it. And I don't like that approach. I want to have a plan to make money off of it. And that plan might not work, and I might have to adjust it or change it. But I don't want the plan to be market penetration at all costs, including the cost of the business shutting down one day, even after we've gone on the roller coaster fun ride of millions of dollars of VC funding, because we didn't have a real long-term plan. And I stand by that. If you're selling hardware at a loss to get market penetration and figure out the profit model later, like, good luck. I hope it works out for you, but it's not for me. That approach is not for me. Okay, so what is next? I don't want to spend too much time on this. I've gotten to a point where I'm fulfilling orders every single day for puck holders. And I've got that process to a pretty good spot where I can do it fairly quickly. You kind of can. Which I should point with this finger. Right above my finger here, right along here, you can kind of see those little screens. There's one right there, and there's one right there. I've pre-assembled a bunch of them. They're just sitting there kind of lined up. So assembly takes time, and like I spent time doing that. I'm gonna have to do another round of, like, bulk assembly so that I have them ready, so that when the orders come in, I don't have to do assembly on the spot. I can just put them in boxes and ship them. But, like, I'm spending time on that every day now. I'm also trying to find more time to spend on the social media promotion side of it. So I'm at a point now where I have a product that is ready to be sold to consumers, and I have the things here, and I need to get them sold. Like, I have a backlog of technical things that's 100 miles long. None of it matters if I can't sell these and get people interested and find that there is actual demand for them. And so far, like I said, they're selling fairly well with very little marketing. And so that's very encouraging. But I'm at a point where I feel like until I sell these 500 that I have, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend huge amounts of time. Even though I said previously, like, I wanted to get the platform high and tight, I still do. But none of that matters if I can't sell the product that I made, right? And so I'm also trying to find more time to invest in helping out my partner on this. He's more responsible for the like sales and marketing side, but again, my efforts on the tech side don't do us a lot of good if we're not selling them. And so if there's things that I could do to help with like social media presence and things like that, which again is not my strong suit, but they're things that you have to do. Like, I've got a cool product. When people see it and they like it and they're like, this is really cool, you can't have that moment until you see it or have an opportunity to experience it, which means we need to get it into in front of as many people as possible. And that's easier said than done. And so I also want to spend time on like, how can we be doing social media things to like have the brand have a little bit more presence on social media, interacting with people, reaching out to just get eyeballs on that hopefully convert into customers. And so, and I also have a full-time job, like for those that have been watching. So it's not like I have all day to do this. Like, I have limited amounts of times and pockets between job and family and all these things to spend on this. And so what to expect going forward, I don't know, because I've sort of gotten into a spot of like this 100-mile backlog, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, I would love to do all of them. Which one should I stick, which one should I start with? And should I start with any of them, or should I be making a Facebook post right now? Like, is where I'm at. And it's kind of frozen me a little bit, paralyzed me, because it seems overwhelming. Like, there's this giant pile of things, and the comfort of knowing that I already have this ready to go. Like, so there's no more work right now that needs to go into delivering the product. The product is in a deliverable state. And so one of the things I really want to do a stream on, and I'm going to find the time, is you can see I started here. I was going to go through, my plan was to say, I wrote a list of all the things I'm worried about, and I was going to just take them and tackle them one at a time. One of them was programming a device for the wrong team player. If you remember, I have to program these before they ship to connect the back end to the front end so that it follows the correct team. Ideally, let me just grab one. Ideally, this is what it looks like when you get it. It's got a little QR thing that you scan, which takes you to our website, which helps you download the configuration app to get started. What I would love to do is, in this state, be able to slap it in a box, but I can't. What I have to do is I have to take this. When an order comes in, I have a whole process of fulfillment where I got to plug it in, and I've written some scripts so that it will create the necessary things in my back end, so that when the customer gets it and it checks in, it's like, oh, you're that puck holder. You're following the New York Rangers. Here's your data. I would much prefer for them to get it like this, that I could just batch assemble, have to do nothing, and then in that app, that configuration app where they have to connect it to their home Wi-Fi, okay, now select the team or player you want it to follow. And I've covered this in a previous stream. I would love to get to that point. And so as I was sitting here saying programming a device for the wrong team player, I was going to go through what my current process is and like, how could we make it better? But then I got to the point of, should I spend time making this process less error prone, or should I just get right into the meat of, if the customer is selecting the team or player, this problem goes away. Like, it's not a problem I have to solve anymore. It's The customer just selects it. And if they select the wrong one, they just go back into the app and select it. Or if they decide they want to be a bandwagon fan and change teams, they can just do that. And I don't have to do anything. I did get one recently. A customer called in and said, hey, this was a gift to me. When I got it configured, it's showing me team stats. It's not my team stats. Well, the person who gifted it to him thought he liked one team, but it turns out he liked a different team. And so it was easy. I said, hey, no problem. Just tell me what your team is and I'll fix it. But he had to call support to do that versus just go into the app and change it. Especially when I get down to the player level where you might have a favorite team, but if you want to switch it to track different players, like I don't want to have to do customer support for that. So I'm not going to go through this process of like, how can we make that better? The way to make it better is to make the app better. And then this is no longer a problem. And the thing that's been holding me back on that is the setup is done over Bluetooth, which was intentional. And it's a lot of magic to me because it's just the ESP32 built-in stuff. I'm using their provisioning library, and I'm using their app that I forked and reskinned and made some modifications to. But that whole connection channel from phone to device is magic to me. And it works. It works really well. But I need to make it not magic. And I need to understand exactly what's happening at the Bluetooth level. And this is also, I've had several people ask me why I don't use Flutter. Again, it was because I had apps out of the bag. But so I would really like to understand what's happening with Bluetooth and dive more into, can Flutter cross-platform Bluetooth? How well can it do that? And if so, I want to start working on the next version of the app that does all the things that I wish it did now that would really help me and would help resolve a lot of the things I'm worried about list that I wrote down. And so I think on the next stream, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be looking into figuring out the provisioning Bluetooth stuff, and we'll maybe even mess around with Flutter. Like I have the source code for iOS and Android, so I can see, that's the way I can inspect and see what's happening. It's documented as well, but and then looking into how feasible is it to do Flutter, because one of the things I found with both of these apps out of the bag is that they look fine, but the UI is really hard to mess with. And if I could kind of clean slate that and say like, these are the screens I need, and I had to like hide a bunch of them that are still built into the app on both iOS and Android, that would be really cool. And if I could do that with Flutter and have it be cross device, that would be extra cool. And so I want to really just take the time to dive in and figure that out. We're going into the holidays here in the United States, so I should have a little more time to do that. And so that's kind of what will be coming up next. I want to start diving into a real like research spike into how feasible is Flutter and can I get there? And that's another thing that I would love to share with other ESP32 product creators. Like if that works and I could get to a point where I have a Flutter base that's like, here's your Flutter base that you can just extend for your product, that would be another thing that I think would be super interesting to share / sell. I don't know, but like that I think would be very helpful to a lot of people. And so I'll show the process of me going through that here on the stream. So, yeah, exactly, Thorax. Exactly what I was thinking. The other thing about the app is for things like resetting your Wi-Fi. Like I've done some pretty cool things to detect that and autocorrect in the firmware. But the device is another way of like, I actually just had somebody send a puck. He sent me the puck back because he couldn't get the Wi-Fi password reset. It's a little technical, and I never got around to it. There is no app for this. So I actually just sent him another one with a return slip to get the other one back so I could reset it. And he got a fresh one that he could provision. Like same thing with these. Like if you take it from your house to your, aunt's house and you want to set it up there, like that's going to be an issue that I'm gonna have to deal with. And so if I had the app to just go in and hit the reset button, it'll connect over Bluetooth and clear the Wi-Fi and you'll be all set. Like there's a lot of things I could do with the app that are on that backlog. And so I think it's time to start really looking into that. So, all right, well, that's going to do it. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have any questions about any of this, like I said, the whole reason we had this episode was because somebody in the Discord was asking, like, how do you plan on making money? And as you listen to me ramble for like half an hour, the answer is I got a plan. We'll see how it goes. And so anyway, if you have questions, or you want to see something in particular that I could accommodate, I'm more than happy to. I want to make these as valuable as possible for the people watching that might also be going through this process of creating a product. In our case, using ESP32 module. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you and hope you have an amazing rest of your week.